2006 should have been a special year in the career of Rob Van Dam. His momentum was slowly rising after his return, and similar to Rey Mysterio and Edge, he seemed primed for a year that was one of a kind. Van Dam's connection with the crowd was special. Everyone saw his incredible rise in ECW as this unique mixed martial artist who was a jack of many wrestling styles. It was like nothing anybody had seen, and it was a man who weighed around 230 pounds, displayed this high level of athleticism and precise skill. At times, Van Dam's style was too good for his opponent. Once he made his way to the WWE, fans easily resonated with his style to the point where he wrestled in the main event of No Mercy 2001 with Stone Cold and Kurt Angle for the WWF Championship. Van Dam's push towards the highest level wasn't a reality, and everyone expected him to be the next breakout star, but it wasn't to be. Nonetheless, Van Dam remained one of the most over wrestlers in the entire WWE. He was so damn likable. Then came his opportunity. Money in the Bank was a fairly unknown concept in 2005. Edge just held the briefcase and never showed everyone what it could truly do to your career, because everyone thought it was just a title shot, this and that. New Year's Revolution happens and we have an idea of what the briefcase was. With WrestleMania 22 coming up, Rob Van Dam got his opportunity. He captured the briefcase in front of a sold-out Allstate Arena on the grandest stage of them all. To quote a certain rival of his theme song, "The time is now." Van Dam challenged John Cena in one of the most iconic main events of the 2000s, and the atmosphere is unlike anything we had seen in WWE at that point. The rabid NYC crowd threatened a riot if Cena won, and I personally believe there was a possibility of it. And after a 5-star frog splash and Paul Heyman counting the fall, Rob Van Dam had finally reached the apex of the WWE, and to say it was long overdue would be an understatement, but that's what makes it special. This moment would have hit the same if Van Dam captured the gold in 2002. His victory coincided with the relaunch of ECW, and it was clear what the plan was. RVD was set to lead the new brand into the new year. He had a great supporting cast by his side in Kurt Angle on The Big Show, and I don't think there's a doubt for this one, but Van Dam wasn't really going to have a long WWE title reign. Saturday night's main event was supposed to be the night the title run ended, but he got into a little problem beforehand. He got arrested for drug possession at the worst time, and because of this, he was suspended for 30 days and lost both the WWE and ECW titles. On the August 8th, 2006 episode of ECW, Rob Van Dam made his return during the Kurt Angle and Sabu match. He caused the DQ and dropped both Kurt Angle and Sabu with a chair, and Van Dam's attitude was extremely different here. At the time Kurt Angle was burnt out, he suffered an injury and was going to be out for the week. So Van Dam was set to face Sabu in a #1 contenders ladder match. For RVD, he saw this as a golden opportunity. He knew that Sabu would provide a tough challenge, but he was determined and said that nothing will stop him. Since he had the wellness policy D-boost, he lost, but he put up a fight. This is a hidden gem from WWE ECW. It's not awesome or anything like that, but you might enjoy it. And Van Dam didn't even lose decisively because Big Show interfered and accidentally gave Sabu the win. RVD was without a feud at this point, but that problem would soon be solved. On the August 22nd, 2006 episode of ECW, Rob Van Dam was attacked by Hardcore Holly. He came in with a steel chair and dropped him, signaling the beginning of a feud. To top it all off, he hit the Alabama Slammer. Now, this came in light of Paul Heyman's motivational speech. He told Hardcore to get extreme. As a result of this, both men faced off the following week. They had a quick opener which saw Van Dam get himself disqualified in retaliation of last week. Hardcore brought in the chair and got himself a win, but it still wasn't over because RVD tossed a chair in his face. They had a rematch 2 weeks later, but a bunch of heels interfered and attacked RVD. This had to do with his rivalry with Paul Heyman. So Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman made the save. Hardcore Holly was still trying to make a name for himself, and he was doing Heyman's dirty work, and in addition, putting the spotlight on himself. So he cost RVD his match with King Booker. As a result of this, both men faced off in an Extreme Rules match. No lie, this is one of the most iconic matches from WWE ECW. Let's talk about it. The match was intense from the beginning. Things slowed down with Hardcore taking control. Then he drops Van Dam through the table, and this would be more than enough to end a match today. He had this big ass cut, yet he continues the match like it's nothing. He sent RVD onto a chair, did this and that, but it wasn't enough to keep him down. He had a burst of momentum, and Hardcore was taking it. Neither man was looking good though at this point, but it was RVD who had the edge, and he connected with a 5-star frog splash to win the match. Great match, and embodied the fighting spirit of ECW. Hardcore just went through the match like it was nothing and provided himself an iconic moment in his career. The fans showed great respect to him after the match, but at the end of the day, it was just another night. He was looking forward after this. He wanted RVD in a rematch. His request was denied, and instead Rob Van Dam faced Test in an Extreme Rules match. Paul Heyman ended up using his guy, the Big Show, to help Test win this match, so now his attention was towards the ECW Championship once again. That was his main goal. That was RVD's main goal. It was to be the champion. Big Show told him that if he wants a match, he has to beat him. With the help of Hardcore Holly, he did just that. WWE Network doesn't have this. I don't even know why. It's bizarre. But let's move on. On this match, RVD said that he did the impossible. He said that it was amazing, but he was looking forward. All of a sudden, Paul Heyman came out and he admitted that Big Show was pinned 1, 2, 3 by RVD. He said that being known as a man of his word, and Taz burst out laughing. It was absolutely hilarious to him. He's going to give RVD his title shot. However, he has to retrieve the title shot in a ladder match. So basically, he has to wrestle another match against the Big Show. Heyman then told him that this ladder match could be a little extreme and his security went on the attack. Van Dam managed to fight back and stand tall ahead of his ladder match. Fast forward to the main event. Yet another tough task for Mr. Tuesday Night. Big Show was tossing him around like nothing, but RVD's athleticism was his opening. He was extremely creative on offense, providing Big Show some very odd situations. The blood was really affecting the champion to the point where he was making mistakes, but then it seemed like all hope was gone when the Big Show dropped him with a chokeslam. He's climbing up the rungs and suddenly Van Dam pops up and sends him to the outside before winning the contract. Decent match. It made you believe RVD could do it and win the entire thing, even the title in their next matchup. Once again, he's got the title shot, but Paul Heyman feels he has to throw another obstacle in the way of Rob Van Dam. Because when he gave him the title shot, it wasn't a one-on-one match. It was for the Extreme Elimination Chamber match. Then to make matters worse, Heyman cost him his tag team match later that night. He was so confident at this point that he booked himself in a match with Rob Van Dam. Of course, it wasn't one-on-one. Hardcore Holly was his tag team partner though. During the match, RVD took a beating. Hardcore was waiting for the tag. When he finally entered the match, he turned on Van Dam. This was all a setup to demoralize RVD. He almost never looked good in this feud. He appeared the following week despite Heyman giving him the night off, so he uses this to his advantage. He's like, oh, you want to defy my orders, this and that. He forced him to put his title opportunity on the line against Hardcore Holly in an Extreme Rules match. Van Dam had to fight like hell to keep the title shot, and the storyline heading into December to Dismember was set up. It was set up right there for Rob Van Dam to capture the title. He had endured so much from the GM Paul Heyman and almost never looked good. It made sense for him to recapture the gold, but Van Dam was finished. They weren't going to push him after what happened earlier. McMahon was insistent on Lashley and was fed up after months of constant complaints from Paul Heyman. For Paul, it was a culmination of probably the most stressful 6 months he's had in years, and for Van Dam, it was the beginning of the end. The Wrestling Observer newsletter reported in January of 2007, WWE is doing all they can to get RVD to re-sign with the company fast, in fear that he'll go to TNA. Lately, RVD's behavior backstage has been described as a kid giving his teachers a hard time on the last days of school. He's been openly mocking Johnny Ace in front of Vince backstage, which makes a lot of people feel that he has already made up his mind and really will be leaving the company. Rumors circulated of Van Dam's departure around the end of 2006. Apparently he was interested in TNA because of the light schedule, but for now, he was still in WWE. With the departure of Paul Heyman, Van Dam received his title opportunity almost immediately. Why? Because the fans were given the chance to choose Bobby Lashley's next challenger. Van Dam's claim for this one was simple. He was screwed out of a title shot by Paul Heyman, and if the fans want a reason to vote for him, they should watch his match later that night. Test did win the match, but the fans did make up their mind. They voted for RVD. Test in frustration attacked him. Van Dam was extremely thankful of the fans giving him the opportunity that was denied to him by Paul Heyman, and all he had to do was follow up. Tensions were high for this one. Both men showed off their styles early on. Lashley had the strength and agility, but RVD's impressive pace and unique offense gave him a chance. In the beginning, Bobby Lashley showed off his power. He threw Van Dam to the outside and worked as a heel. He was locking him in a bear hug, slowing down the pace, but it wasn't enough at this point. Lashley felt that it was time for the spear after a while, but Van Dam evaded it, and the man was wild. And he had a springboard clothesline, and the match ended in a double countout. As a result of this, he got a rematch. Now, this matchup, I liked that. I was liking it until the double countout. It was very interesting, and it's kind of a shame that they didn't have a real actual match on pay-per-view or something, because I think it would have been good. Now, Rob Van Dam had great respect for Bobby Lashley. He expected a good match, a rematch, but tonight, the title goes home to him. This time around, the match felt more aggressive. Both men had a sense of urgency to prove that they're the better man, and the approach was a bit different though, as it was RVD who was wearing down Lashley. As time went on, though, it was the same as the previous match. RVD hurt himself on the announce table on a spot that looked horrible, and I'm almost certain felt horrible. And this thing was getting good, but Test ruined everything, causing the DQ. This led to a triple threat match, which was decent, but the emphasis was more on Test and Bobby Lashley. Van Dam failed to win the title here, took the pinfall, and he was off to another feud. Now, Vince McMahon felt that ECW was worn down. It was old, and he disliked the originals. He considered the likes of Elijah Burke and Marcus Corvan to be a breath of fresh air, and this storyline was I talked about it in the New Breed video, but long story short, the new guys want to take out the old guys. There were some decent matches to come out of it, but overall, it didn't really do much for anybody except CM Punk. Both the New Breed and the ECW originals made it to WrestleMania, and on the grandest stage of them all, the originals emerged victorious. It's low-key a big moment to see these ECW guys together on the biggest stage, the pinnacle of professional wrestling, WrestleMania. For CM Punk, did he want to embrace tradition or follow the trend? That's what it came down to at this point. After infiltrating the new breed and making things worse than they were for the group, he joined the ECW Originals. As for Rob Van Dam, he was nearing the end of his contract. WWE were reaching out to him to potentially extend it, but he turned it down. So now it's on to his final month in WWE. On the May 1st, 2007 episode of ECW, the new ECW champion Mr. McMahon brought out the Originals. He wanted to compete with one of them and booked the Fatal 4-Way Extreme Rules match. The winner faces him one-on-one for the title. Van Dam scored the victory, but the one-on-one turned into a 3-on-1. He was destroyed, and to top it all off, McMahon made the pinfall. Okay, this was a weird-ass storyline. McMahon was really losing his mind. He was going crazy. That's another story for another day. But back to RVD. After Randy Orton took out Shawn Michaels, RVD expressed anger towards Orton's actions. He was very pissed off with him and wanted to do something about it. So they were going to face off on Raw. The Legend Killer in response said that despite beating up Michaels, he had respect for him. RVD, on the other hand, he didn't respect him at all, so he was going to enjoy giving him a beatdown tonight. Their match once again added to the new Randy Orton character. He inflicted damage similar to what he did to Shawn Michaels, and once again, he punted the hell out of somebody. This time, it was Rob Van Dam, and to top it all off, he even RKO'd him after the match. So as a result of this, RVD suffered a concussion. The next night, he tries to come to the aid of Tommy Dreamer, but Orton with one strike sent him elsewhere. Despite this, Rob Van Dam managed to score the upset at One Night Stand. Randy Orton's ego and arrogance cost him the stretcher match, but for Van Dam, winning this match came at a price. He was damaged and hurt by the end of it, and Orton decided to add insult to injury by punting him again after the match. He then DDT'd him on the floor and stood over him without any remorse or emotion. So that's RVD's run. On Van Dam's departure, Pro Wrestling Torch reported in May of 2007, at the end of February earlier this year, he had stopped an auto rollover of his contract that would have taken effect at the end of August. He wanted to negotiate for a lighter schedule, extended time off later this year, and perhaps a pay raise. WWE, as of the latest negotiations, has not offered RVD's desired amount of time off, so he has given indications that he will choose to leave rather than accept their latest offer. A source close to RVD says it's considered likely he'll sign with TNA after he leaves WWE, which means WWE may begin to phase him out of ECW and use him to elevate others before he leaves. There's still a chance WWE will meet RVD's demands, but as of now, that appears unlikely. As for why Van Dam left, it was due to burnout. It got so mundane for me, said Van Dam. I was so burned out from the routine of going out there. Here I am in sunny Los Angeles, and why would I want to go all the way to Boston to do a flip and a spin kick? On his way out, Chris Benoit showed respect to RVD for leaving and told him, quote, "You know when it's right to leave. A lot of us don't know that. So we respect you for that, so good for you." Okay, that's it for this video. It wasn't a pleasant run for RVD. You know, beforehand, he was doing a lot of stuff. Like, even though he wasn't even in the main events, he was doing a lot more. Here, it's like they're trying to punch him down. They're like, hey, you screwed us over in July. We're going to screw you over from here until the end of your contract, this and that. They didn't trust him. And I don't know, like, it felt like he should have been a bit higher on the card. But after what happened in July, it is what it is. Had he remained in WWE, I don't think he would have done much. He had to leave because he was burnt out, and it wasn't going to get any better for him, you know? Alright, what do you guys think of RVD's final days in WWE? Please comment down below, and that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the Van Daminator on the like button, and perhaps the 5-star frog splash on the subscribe button. Peace, I'm out.